My first chapter, which is Land and People of Ladakh in Pakistan, it took me around 7 years to write this thesis. As a Ladakhi who studied around 26 years away from home in Bangalore and Mysore, it was very difficult for me to search and excavate the 2,500 years of my own land, culture, and history. The dichotomy was so intense that I gave everything that was in me to know about this place. And then I have found it at last that this place is a huge and rich history, oral history. And the land of this area, which we today call Ladakh, and which was Pakistan also before independence, called Ladakh Wazir, the province of Ladakh, was called in historically with different names. Like as man was saying that politically, as the major empire, which is in the vicinity of this area, conquered the Central Asia, northern plains of India, this place was inevitably included. For example, if you go back to the first millennium AD, Ladakh, what was it called, mentioned by the Korean pilgrims or Xuanzang, the Chinese pilgrims, or suppose say that we call it Little Bolo or Greater Bolo or Poli Lo, which was later termed as Little Tibet or Greater Tibet. And earlier to that, in the Sanskrit, we get this term called Bharata Desa, the land, the country of Bharata. All these names and other names like Yongtong, which is also similar to Zhangjun, these are the names which is mentioned in the ancient books, not of Ladakh, but the surrounding neighbors of it, because the recorded history of Ladakh has a very weak resolution. It was only in 17th century, the imperial court of Ladakh, from the Lachen Palkar, the palace of Ladakh, the king started writing and recording the history of Ladakh, started writing in the 17th century, the chronicles of Ladakh, decoding the information from 9th century onwards. So on paper records, Ladakhi history is very weak in its resolution. For that, a student of history like me or a culture has to study the sources from Arabic, sources from Chinese, sources from Central Asia, sources from Tibetan documents, sources from Punjab, Gandhar province, Kashmir, the Peshawar. So you see, it is not easy for a student of history to write a history of Ladakh from past 2,500 years. As I was saying, Ladakh was called by different names throughout the history, but we do not have, even today, a definite political extension of its boundary line, because it was not in the ancient history too. For example, if you look at the Tibetan documents, they divide the history of Ladakh in a form of Ngari Khorsum, the three political division of Ngari. The Tibetan, from the eastern side, the eastern documents divides the whole Tibetan plateau into three political divisions called Ngari Khorsum. I have the map in my thesis done by Captain Handy Sachi, released by the Ministry of Defense. It took 2 years for them to release. He has precisely drawn the western as well as complete extreme eastern map of Ladakh called Ngari Khorsum, the three political division of Ngari. It is the the term political division of this area used in the Tibetan documents. But if you look at from the western documents, from the sources of Silk Route marching, from the Arabic marchings, or from the sources of Gandhar province, from the Kashmir Rajataringi of Kalahanna or Dhanaraja, you have different terminologies used for Lower Ladakh, or at least the central Ladakh. You see, Ladakh is divided between three cleavages, three mountains, Zanskar, Indus, and Shire. You see, it is an area of these three cleavages. So beyond that, we see a lot of changes. Divergence you were talking about, convergence you were talking about. Yes, there has been an immense convergence happen in this area from past 2,500 years. There was a convergence of, you see in the history of culture of Ladakh, you see a lot of borrowings in cultural artifacts from the Central Asia, from Khotan, from Kashgar, from Yarkand, from Kocha, from Lowland. You see, so Ladakh has so many borrowings from everything that took place here from 2,500 years of Silk Route trade period. It has, But then the question arises, do we also have something which is core to this local place, which is aboriginal, which is local. Yes, we do have. Like the cultural dress we see, the headgear we see. In fact, in my research, I have given a hypothesis, which is purely a hypothesis, that the Pashupati seal, which is in Mulabandha Asana, found in Mohenjo-daro, which is in Peshawar Museum, is wearing the headgear. That headgear is exactly the present Ladakhi traditional dress headgear, which is called kanto. You might go and visit and see again, like, Pashupati seal of Mohenjo-daro. So there are a lot of other things. One of the most interesting things to study about this area is that in the central Ladakh, we find Kharosti inscription, we find Sarda inscription, we find Brahmi inscription. So the larger empires which have ruled the northern India as well as, say, sort of in a high Asia, it also had been here impacted, influenced, and they were here. Right? So this place becomes very important. But before, beyond Changla or beyond Warila, you don't find that. You don't find beyond Changla and beyond Warila passes in the Changtang Plateau any of the inscriptions. You see, if you go beyond the Changla and Warila pass, even the rock art, the petroglyphs and pictographs also get changes. You see that the scenes of rock art is like people hunting the yaks, not the ibex. But if you go towards the lower Ladakh, you see that people are hunting the ibex, not the yaks. You see, geographically everything gets changes. So what I'm trying to say is that this land and the culture of Ladakh and Baltistan definitely is very green. The core culture which I was talking about is mostly local folklore. You could say local religion, which is like if you study the history of Ladakh, as you were saying that you have to study the history of spread of Islamic teaching, spread of Buddhism. Yes, of course, Buddhism 2,500 years old, 2226 BC from Ashokan period, Arhat Madhyantika brought the Buddhism here. And then in 15th century, first Islamic saint who came here and preached for Najmuddin Kubrawiya's Sufi order from Bukhara. He was from 1221 when Mongol invaded modern Uzbekistan, Bukhara. He was killed there. His disciple, Sayyid Ali Amdani Nur Baksh, arrived here. We exactly don't know whether he also had been here the Sheikh, but he was here somewhere. So we do know that, but there is something which is pre-Islamic and pre-Buddhist. That too also you have to look into, which is in fact we do have like Kargil as a Shia majority, but even among the Shias they do call for certain sort of rituals. Even today Buddhist monks that we do not talk about or enlarge much about it because the local folk religion is what I think I try to look into, which is pre-Islamic and quite pre-Buddhist too, which has been originated from, we could say, from the Mount Kailash Sarovar, because if you look into the history of all these regions of Trans-Himalaya, you see there has been a very flourishing big kingdom called Jammu Kingdom. When Mount Kailash Sarovar was flourishing city, there has been a very, very active 18 kingdoms under it, So it was spread from, in the Tibetan documents, we find that it spread from the Mount Kailash Sarovar up till the Takzik, the land which has a good breed of horse, which is Persia. It was spread until from Kailash Mansarovar to Persia. So under that kingdom, there had been a religion, a folk religion, which is animal worship, which is totemistic, which is animistic, which is nature worshipping, of course, but it had also had a rich astronomical, rich astrological geomancy knowledges about it, which even today we have it. So this place has ethnographically birds, which we call it Brokpas, which is also a term internationally known as Aryan, which we have a blend of Indo-Iranian, which is we have a blend of Indo-Mongolian, we could also say Indo-Tibetan, and we also have a recent tribe called Argon we were speaking about. Argon are the Sunni merchants who are based in Leh mostly. They are the rich elite merchants who have come from Turks, Eastern Turkestan, which is Xinjiang, and the Central Asian period, which is now Uzbek, Kazakh. They were Turks. In our local term, we call them Hor. So these Argons married with local Buddhist women and they settled down here. They were good at businesses. Even today, they are very good at business. So Argons are there, Dards are there, who are also called Brokpas. Brokpas are not a good term to use. Aryans is also not a good term to use. But if you look into the songs recorded, their songs of migration, they call themselves Minaro. They call themselves Minaro. So their origin is from Caspian Sea, because even today in Ladakh, they wear conch shells and things which is found in the nearby seas. If you go to Da, Hanu, Bema, their traditional headgear and all the dresses, you find things they wear from nearby seas. Their original home is from Caspian Sea, and they have migrated. They were squeezed. Whenever this cradle of war happened, in this Middle East, in the East Asia, towards the West Asia, in Afghan province, in the Fargana Valley, in the Bactrian region, they were squeezed. Every now and then they were squeezed, and lastly they migrated in the Ladakh, the lower Ladakh. So beyond that, they haven't got migrated anywhere else. The 18th century song, which is recorded by Moran missionaries, which you find in 1894 Indian Antiquity, which is in Delhi University Library and many other libraries, you find them. The 18 songs they were recorded in 1894 by H. Franke, the Moran missionaries. You find a lot of things about them. In fact, I give a lot of hypotheses today, okay? Like one hypothesis is like Mohenjo seal, which is in the Ladakhi headgear, the Kushan dynasty. Another hypothesis I wanted to give is that this Aryan local vernacular, earlier in the morning introductory session, someone was talking about how we should give importance to vernacular history. The vernacular, I was listening to it, perhaps the sir was saying that. So this Dardu, these Aryan people, what they speak, I think it is Proto-Sanskritic. You guys have to find out. Why I'm saying this, these European people in the colonial history, most of our references are from there, because they have done immense work. We know that in Pakistan, the book called Tribes of Hindu Kush by John Bigelow, the William Gottlieb Lichtner, the first principal of Lahore University, we do know that they have worked on it. They have worked on all the extinct local languages, like the language called Gushasti, which is almost extinct. John Bigelow, in the book called Tribes of Hindu Kush, he have worked on it. And all the work, and he gave a name called Dardistan. You all know that he was talking about Francisco Young husband. Likewise, we do have Mark Arul Sen, who had found, and other people who have found treasures in the Tuhang document in the Taklamakan desert. They have found 23,000 manuscripts. And from that manuscript, we do know that in 7th century, from the documents of Eastern Ladakh, from the Tibetan plateau, this place was called Jammu's Mud. Population census was taking place in 7th century. And from there, we derived this or discerned this information that Ladakh was called from that direction called Jammu's Mud. You see, Ladakh is a wonder carpet, and as today we see, it has been influenced from all the 4 directions. Likewise, it has been always influenced from other directions that have been going around in its vicinities, in its surroundings. So, I wanted to say this, that sadly, having a lot of things to get discovered, excavate, and find out and research, we do not have an Institute of Ladakh Studies. We do not have an Institute of Central Asian Studies, nor do we have a department of Buddhist Studies which is equivalent to the syllabus like we do have here a Buddhist Studies, which is philosophy based, which is based on the sects of Mahayana or Tibetan Buddhism, but not as per the syllabus of Massachusetts or Yale or Cambridge or Harvard or Sanchi or Kushinagar or Gautam Buddha University. So I urge ICHR from the depth of my heart, people like me who have spent 11 years in research about these areas of past 2005 years is jobless, unemployed. Why? Because we do not have either a Central Asian department under which I could be employed or worked on, or a Buddhist department or Ladakh Studies department. So my humble request, my Shastanga Namaskar to the great dignitaries present here to look upon it and make either of 3 one of the departments or institute, so that all the researches which come from Europe, America, or from India, or any parts of the world, or Asia, Southeast Asia, must go through this channel, one channel, not from individual NGOs. If you have any questions regarding Ladakh and Gilgit-Baltistan, culture and historical, not the political, I haven't touched the political history, culture and historical, please do let me know. Thank you for giving me this chance. I thank you all. Thank you so much.